including Lake Wheeler Road, where you were at last night. So we were there just a minute ago. My name is Garey Fox. I have the absolute pleasure of being the new Dean of the College of Ag and Life Sciences, 56, 57 days in. Very, very exciting. As I told the group yesterday, and if you were here yesterday, you're going to hear this again, we are a premier college of Ag and Life Sciences in the country and in the world. And one of the reasons that we are premier is because of our really great faculty and staff that we have and students that we have in our college, but also because of the really great partnerships that we have. Partnerships with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, the North Carolina Farm Bureau, our commodity groups, and our industry groups. And I have to tell you that when I took over as Dean, I met with Deborah, and she was like, what do you want me to continue doing? And I said, continue doing the emerging research showcases, because I love these events. Okay, I've been at 3 or 4 of these already, and I absolutely love these events. What I would challenge you to do is engage as we go through the day today. Ask these speakers some really tough questions, and let's really dig into some of the topics in a pretty in-depth way. Again, like I said, we're very proud of what we're doing at NC State. We have a premier research program that we lead at NC State in the College of Ag and Life Sciences, one of the top 3 research programs in productivity in the country. We have a high-impact extension network that touches every county in the state of North Carolina, including the eastern band of the Cherokees. And we have a really strong academic program in the college with 12 different academic departments and a lot of different units and centers. And what I want you to do, I also want you to know, is we have a really strong leadership team within the college. Our associate and assistant deans, as well as our department head group, are really, really top-notch. And I'm not just saying that because we got 3 or 4 department heads in the room today, but they are absolutely top-notch. One of those individuals that I believe is going to elevate us to an even higher level, and especially the Prestage Department of Poultry Science, is Dr. Frank Siewerdt. And I am going to invite Frank up to give you an introduction to the Poultry Science Department and talk to you a little bit about the Food Animal Initiative as well. So Frank, thank you.
Good afternoon again. A lot of familiar faces in the room. We're glad to be back to Raleigh after 23 years of absence from the university, at least affiliation with the university. I'm coming back to see friends and my advisor over the time, and really blown away by the challenge and the great people I get to work with. But anyway, then I come here to talk about me. I was was asked to give a very brief introduction to the Food and Animal Initiative, which is I think it's a major agenda point in Dean Fox's docket, I would say that way. He's made it very clear in the first meetings that we had with him when he took his new role that this is going to be a priority. And the reasons are very clear, because this could just completely elevate the quality of our research and our outreach and our education programs to a place that we're not familiar with. I mean, we have a good model to look at the Plant Science Initiative, although this is going to be in a much different shape and form of that, just because the 2 industries are very different. Whether you look at where research is mostly done and applied, how the extension programs work, and I think the only closer topic that we have will be the education programs. But anyway, the Food and Animal Initiative, I'm sure that most of you in the room have at least heard or read a little bit about it. It's centered in 4 platforms, those being an integrated systems for food and animal health, a digital animal agriculture, protein innovation in the broadest sense that you can think, and food animal agricultural communication. And then there are a lot of elements around that amalgamate all these concepts. We do have a full-blown document, which I'll confess to not having read the whole thing yet. We have a very nice executive summary, which runs about 20 pages, that really has all the essentials in there, and that's widely available online. And if you want to get more familiar with it, I really encourage you to spend some time looking at it, because the information there is very good and was very well produced. Of course, it's a living document. Pretty much every couple of years, societal pressures and society needs change. Availability of resources change. Agendas of companies, universities, governments change. And so we don't want that to be a stiff document. We want it to be something that just provides us the guidelines, and then we build upon that and are able to work on this initiative. It's a strong collaboration between the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. There's two departments taking the biggest role in there, the Prestage Department of Poultry Science, where I work, and several of my colleagues are here today, and also the Department of Animal Science. And also the College of Veterinary Medicine, which provides kind of a third pillar for this initiative here. So naturally, other faculty and other people affiliated with other departments on campus will be participating as well, and that's a very welcome addition to this program. You know, we come to an event like this, and a lot of times, I was talking to a colleague yesterday, I said we come here and then we go home, I said, that was a great event. It was really good, and we feel good about it, but I would like for us to have a different attitude today, and not only pass judgment if this was a good use of your time or not, but think about how can myself or my company get involved in this? Where do I want to really be making a mark and participating in that stage where we can lead the discussion and take control of what's going to be happening in this initiative? How can my company, how can myself put effort forward and make sure that you're helping to shape this in a way that's beneficial not only for you or your organization, but also for this bigger good, which is to enable the states to get more elevated in food animal production. And that would benefit naturally much beyond the borders of the state here. Anyway, the leadership of this project, the Food Animal Initiative, currently is Dr. Todd C., who's the head of the Animal Science Department. You've seen him come up here a couple of times, at least during these days. And also Dr. Derek Foster, who's an associate professor at the Population Health and Microbiology Department, and his expertise is in ruminant medicine and global health. Next, I would like to introduce a colleague here that's going to lead the next discussions. That's Dr. April Levy from DSM, and she's a senior director for regional technical services. So, Dr. April Levy, she's a native of Louisiana from Baton Rouge. We were talking earlier. It's even more humid than my hometown. Being there once and I missed that humidity. But I admire her sticking there and getting her 3 degrees there. And she concentrated her animal science studies in poultry and swine nutrition. And now she's been working with DSM Firmenich for 9 years. And I think for the last 11 years, she's been living with her family, her husband and 2 sons in Ankeny, Iowa. So she also gave us a couple of snippets of what they like to do, which is really just spend time with their children and love entertaining and cooking for friends and family, which is something really cool. Hopefully you get to taste some of that cooking one day as well. Anyway, April, the floor is yours now. Thanks for being here.
Well, good afternoon. I hope everyone is wide awake because we have a fantastic panel of 3 different people that I will have the pleasure of introducing. So kind of going along with the theme yesterday that was mentioned by Dean Fox, he really hammered it home, and hopefully it resonated with you about talking about innovation and focusing on the future innovation that we have coming. And along with that is an interdisciplinary approach. And I think if you look at the next 3 panelists, it does give an overview of different views. So we'll have representatives from Elanco, ABB, and the North Carolina Pork Council. So it is my pleasure to begin to go ahead and introduce, let me get these. Are you going to hold the slides? Okay. Excellent. Our first speaker is Lucas Huntimer. Lucas began his career at Novartis Animal Health, completing a Bachelor in Science in Biology and Microbiology from South Dakota State University. At Novartis Health, Lucas held roles as a laboratory technician and a scientist focusing on bacterial fermentation, downstream processing, batching, vaccine formulation, and in processing, potentiating release assays, safety, and as you can tell by all of these, he has done quite a bit and has a great background. He then decided to pursue a doctorate in immunobiology, so he's adding to others that have been in the immune focus. and that was at Iowa State University, focusing on efficacy and immunological mechanisms behind vaccines. Then he returned to Novartis Animal Health in 2012 as a scientist and project leader. And we'll round him out of where he lands today, which he is at Elanco Animal Health, and that was through the acquisition of Novartis. And he leads a multi-leadership strategic roles within the Elanco research and development. So with that, can you please welcome Lucas?
Thanks for the kind introduction, and I told Deborah I would keep this at 10 minutes, right? Yeah, okay, good. I gave her a bunch of slides, so we have our kind of corporate deck. It's an overview of Elanco, how we operate and what we do. So I'm going to zoom by a couple of those slides just because I want to key in on some of the important messages and hopefully finish up in time. But pleasure to be at this event. Passionate about animal health. Before we get into the company structure, a little bit of my own why. I grew up in Midwest, South Dakota specifically, where there's more cattle than people. So I grew up on a small little hobby ranch, horses and a few cow-calf pairs. So really passionate about the mission and some of the farm animal innovation of feeding the world. And I'll touch on some of the concepts that have already been iterated during these different discussions, but that's really a driver of what I do and why I like working in the industry. It's really about putting innovation in the hands of producers and veterinarians and pet owners as well. So you'll see both farm animals and companion animals on this, but I'll try to focus on farm animal. So it all starts with the animals and the people who care for them. At Elanco, we believe that healthier animals can be a solution to some of the world's significant challenges. We really feel like animals could be the key unlock for the future. We touched on many of the different issues associated with this, but some of the greatest challenges around malnutrition, obesity, social isolation, and mental health to environmental health and sustainability. And all this bleeds into kind of our mission as a company and animal health focused pharmaceutical company. So our vision really is this food and companionship enriching life. Through our vision, we advance the well-being of animals, people, and our planet. And this is our promise both to our customers as well as the people that work at Elanco is we will rigorously innovate to benefit our customers and improve the health of animals. And that really bleeds into the role that I serve now is a really cool role in that basically I'm a technology scout. So I'm part of a team of scientists and veterinarians with research and development expertise in the pharmaceutical company that it's out there, kind of going to events like this, interfacing with academia, biotech, other pharmaceutical companies, and trying to find that next wave of innovation that we can bring in and develop in the R&D pipeline. A little bit of who we are, background on Elanco. We like to joke that we're a 67-year-old startup. For those not knowing the background, we were part of Eli Lilly, the human pharmaceutical company for most of those 67 years. And actually we started in some ag research with Dow Chemical at some point, but about 5 years ago we were part of a process and we spun out and became our own independent publicly traded animal health pharmaceutical company. So we are fully independent and solely focused on animal health and indications. We are a global company. We sell products in about 90 countries. We have about 10,000 Some of these slides I'll breeze by, like I said, but our value proposition, not only for our customers and owners, but also our shareholders, as we're a publicly traded company, is really focused on these strategic growth areas and the sustainable flow of innovation. And this is a good area, and I'm going to focus on the kind of like green area, the farm animal side, but I mean, we've all touched on these points during this event so far, but 1 in 3 people in the world get the wrong nutrition. As this global population is increasing, there's going to be approximately 75% increase on protein demand. As more of these folks move into the middle class, that's going to increase that protein demand. And we're overusing these resources to commit to that protein. So there's approximately 20% of farm animals that are lost due to disease and death. So one of the major focuses of sustainable innovation in the future is reducing that number on top of more targeted mitigation techniques for sustainability. This is our focused, what we call the IPP strategy, but it's really around innovation, portfolio, and productivity, where I focus my efforts and really on everything here. As my presenter notes are coming up on the side, I apologize, but is in that innovation space and trying to find new technologies to insert into the pipeline. Just another refocusing of that same metric. It's really, driving that innovation, which will turn that flywheel of a portfolio of products to deploy to producers and veterinarians, and that's going to drive productivity and sustainability. A bit of kind of sectioning of what we do at Elanco and how we're broken down. We're about 50% of our business is in this pet health sector, and 50% in that farm animal side. So we're very well balanced. As I mentioned before, we're an international company. This gives you a good breakdown of kind of our geographical divide as far as sales. So we're well balanced in that space. And as you can note, these different species categories, we have a strong presence in cattle, poultry, swine, and aqua. A bit more on that, we're the leaders in the poultry space, again, strong in cattle, and some of the leaders in these kind of future protein areas, such as aquaculture. The innovation engine, we like to say we're kind of agnostic to solutions. So the areas that, we're strong in and we're knowledgeable about are in these traditional pharmaceutical areas of small molecule development, vaccines, biologics, large molecule development. That's kind of our bread and butter as a company. But we don't want to limit those different solutions. We like to say if it's solving a problem for the customer, we want to develop that and get it in the hands of that customer. So, some of the next generation technologies around, live feed additives, microbial manipulation, even some things is tailored as like gene therapies, things like that. Those are things that we all want to know about, learn about, and potentially develop into innovation. Just touching on some of these newer products that we're launching into these farm animal sides. In particular, the topic of sustainability, we recently launched mission of Elanco of food and companionship enriching life. We're committed to advancing our vision of food and companionship enriching life, but recognize the impact of healthy animals have on the health of people and the planet. And some of these major forces that are fueling the future, some of these common themes, that are really convenient access to animal care, and this path to climate neutrality. Elanco is really focusing a lot of efforts into the sustainability space and the farm animal side. So continuing to build off that potential innovation center. Focusing on innovation, right? We want to be the innovation partner of choice. And that's really kind of the mission of my team is to connect with discovery researchers and some of the other folks in that external environment and see how we can potentially collaborate and develop these technologies, because we are a large company, we have an internal R&D engine, but the problems that are out there in that external environment, we don't have enough people, resources, and time to necessarily tackle all those problems. So we really want to leverage the external environment on top of our own innovation. And then a little bit on creating community, and this goes into kind of sustainability and leaving the footprint there for the next generation of farm animal production. So I'll wrap it up there. Happy to talk during the networking section on any of these topics. I'll go deep into the different species and targets of interest with you on the panel as well. I'm happy to answer that. But thank you.
Thank you, Lucas. Next up, we have Rajib Mikail, and he received his PhD degree in electrical engineering from NC State University in 2013. He is currently a principal scientist with ABB U.S. Corporate Research Center in Raleigh and an adjunct assistant professor with the Department of Electrical and Computer Engineering at NC State. His specialization and research interests include electric machines and driving for industrial robotics and aerial applications. Please welcome Rajib.
Hello. Thank you April and Emma for inviting ABB to this event. It's my pleasure to be here. First of all, ABB, when I say someone I work for ABB, then the kids will ask me, why not ABC? Why it is ABB? And I have to explain to them that there is 3 individuals whose first letter, that like hundreds of years, more than 100 years ago, those who initiated this company, and their first name is ABB. So, and also if you search for it, I just searched for it and I found that Google said Angus, beef and bulletin. Well, that's not ABB, okay? So, yeah, it's for fun. Okay, so we have nearly $30 billion business. We have more than 100 countries. The reason some people doesn't know us because our customers are other businesses. We don't do sell to we don't sell consumer products. But those who are in the industry, they know ABB very well. Because in terms of reliability, we are considered like Apple in terms of quality of the product. And I will come to what we do and what are our products and how it is relevant to animal health and well-being. We started about more than 130 years ago. And ABB, everyone knows motor, like a big motor that drives the industry. And ABB is not the inventor. The inventor is a scientist, but ABB is the first industrial manufacturer of the industrial motors. They brought this concept, like Faraday, who discovered the electromagnetic energy conversion theory, and then using that theory, how can you use this for people's benefit? So that's the motor, and ABB introduced that first, and we are still the #1 in the world in the motor and drives both. So it started back in 1883, and all the way different stages. There is a two merge of two companies. One is Asia, and the other one is BBC. So this BBC is not the British Broadcast Corporation, not them. This is another BBC. And then after that merge, we became ABB. Our purpose: we enable a more sustainable and resource-efficient future with our technology leadership in electrification and automation. So in the industry, in the Amazon warehouse, everywhere where there is an automation, where you cannot tolerate any kind of downturn. I mean, like your machine is malfunctioning, that can cost you 1,000 times more than that machine. Okay, just replacing that machine within 1 hour can cost you a lot more than that machine itself. So that means it has to be very reliable when you design it. And I am here. I'm the scientist. By training, I know how to design a machine, and I'm still working on that. In our corporate research center is our whole America, North America, South America, all together. The corporate research center is located inside this campus. So you may have seen a big logo of ABB, red logo. So we have here more than 50 scientists, our colleagues who are working on electric machines and drives. And in terms of applications, there are lots of applications, and animal health and well-being is one of them. So we have about 20 individual dedicated divisions, and bunched them into 4 business areas: electrification, motion, process automation, robotics, and discrete automation. You may have seen those when Tesla or Jiang, they made the cars. There is a big robot that moves the car, do all the welding. Our robots also, we are also in that business, and all the industrial automation business will also have all these divisions and products. In the US itself, we started here long back. Since 2010, we have invested a lot. About 15 acquisitions, more than $14 billion invested just only in the US. In NC State, how we are related, what is the level of collaboration we do with NC State. So here is a picture of some years ago, the interns who worked in our center, and I believe a lot of them from there is also from NC State. So we do internship program. We have myself came from NC State and joined here. So it was like just 2 blocks from my research university lab, and then I just joined the corporate research. And I'm still here more than this year. It will be 10 years. I am also an adjunct with the university, so that works very well. So I can be part of a thesis, a PhD thesis committee. So far I have been in a few of them. We sponsor project for university with PhD topics. We also do endowed professorships. There is one professor who is a ABB distinguished professor. The hardware and software, like you see what you see, this hardware, there is a lot of technology and innovation goes there. in order to make it reliable, to come to this stage, it takes more than 20 to 30 years of research. And every year we are adding more components into it. And right now we are kind of defending our lead, so our competitors cannot take our spot. We are still number one in automation and the portfolio and the digitalization aspect, I would like to emphasize that these 4 key areas: sense, act, analyze, and collaborate. This is our focus when we design any product like the drives that automate the whole thing. We want to make sure that the customers can see every aspect of their automation, so they know if something is wrong, they can trace. Like it's called traceability, so we can trace where is something wrong, and we can act upon it. The trend, what we understand is from the United Nations predicts that about 70% of there will be 70% more production of food by 2050. So that means it's an ever growing need. It will never going down. It's always going up. And even in the pandemic, ABB had a huge demand. So our business, even in the pandemic situation, was very sustainable. So because that thing will never go away. Even if you are in pandemic, you have to eat. So this is one example of an aquaculture process. You may not know. It starts from offshore to all the way to onshore farms, and we have full solution products in all these different applications, different farms. For poultry and livestock, the weather is a like outside weather is not in our control, but we want to make sure that the farm, the warehouse, where inside the farm, the monitoring and control of the weather inside, it has to be controlled 24/7. There cannot be any failure. I'll go into details. The water control, the climate, the body temperature, sound, the feed of the food, all these needs to be seamlessly controlled, and there can be no interruptions. And also there must be, it has to be in a way that you cannot take any chance of an experiment. It has to be well proved that it works and it doesn't fail. If it fails, then there is this quick solution for that. So all this comes with research, and we are part of that. The ventilation system is also one of that. And then I'll try to wrap up in the next slide. Looking ahead, similar to global trends, what is our target? When we do research, what is our target? Our target is to use the most efficient use of energy, efficient use of materials, use less materials, less time, but more output. So our products, that's why these are competitive right now. We use less energy, but we are more, our products are more efficient. And that's how I will end my talk, and we'll probably take more questions in the panel discussion.
Thank you, Rajib. So our next speaker, I was all excited because he wasn't going to have any slides. And I was like, yes, it's going to be the next TED Talk, no slides. Then last minute, he decided to give a few slides, but he has the least amount of slides of the previous two speakers. So let me introduce you to our next speaker, which is o.Roy Lindsey. He is the CEO of the North Carolina Pork Council. He joined them in January of 2021. Prior to coming to North Carolina, he served as the executive director of the Oklahoma Pork Council for 22 years. His day-to-day responsibilities include leading strategic planning, communications and alliances, day-to-day management of the staff and the board of directors. He is a graduate of Oklahoma State University with degrees in agricultural communication and agricultural education. He's not wearing orange today, but it's in his heart. Please welcome Roy.
April, thank you for the introduction. It is a pleasure to be here today. I still am trying to figure out why I am on this panel as opposed to someone that knows something about innovation and research and what all those things are. But as I thought about that, I thought maybe we could share what we as an industry need from you and how you can help us do our job at the North Carolina Pork Council, and thank goodness I have not been promoted or demoted to the National Pork Producers Council. But the things that we need as your industry associations, I see my counterpart Brian Blinson from the Cattlemen back here, I think there are things that you all can help us with. And so as we thought about what we might do in terms of this discussion, I'm not smart enough to operate this. Yeah. Okay. All right. So I didn't have any slides, so I'll go without them. When we think about technology, this phone is a more powerful piece of technology than I did my master's research on 30 years ago. From the data collection, from writing the paper, from all of those pieces, I have more power in the phone in my pocket than I did then. When we think about technology, we embrace technology in almost every walk of our life, except where? Where's the one place you hear repeatedly, we want to go back to what we did 100 years ago. We want to go back to 60 years ago. It's food production. It's farming. A gentleman from Elanco talked about how many people we got to feed, how much more protein we have to have over just the next 20 years, next 30 years. We can't do that without technology. So we have to find a way to embrace technology. What I put up on the slide here, and kind of what this is the only reason I made slides, was because I wanted to do this. But I wanted to just throw some ideas, some things out there, some issues of the day that should be relevant to you all. We think about gene editing. We have a genetics company today who is proposing to develop and market a PRRS-resistant pig. We have removed the gene that makes the pig susceptible to PRRS. The largest economic impact in terms of animal health in our industry today is PRRS, in terms of the swine industry. And we think we could maybe fix that with a gene edit. But we've got a public that's resistant to GMOs and doesn't recognize that there's a difference between a genetically modified organism and a gene-edited organism. We think about CRISPR technology. Our own FDA wants us to look at each genetically edited pig as its own research lab. Not we will approve the process and we will approve all the pigs we edited and then their offsprings are okay. Every offspring has to be considered a new lab and must meet all the standards to be approved for use in the food system. That's a real challenge for us. We think about questions like question 3 in Massachusetts and Prop 12 in California that tell us the best way to raise animals is X. And yet we know that the science tells us that that may or may not be the case. And that truthfully, there are trade-offs no matter what production system we use. We think about mRNA vaccines. Lots of attention on mRNA vaccines with the COVID vaccine that came out. But if you weren't paying attention, there were a number of states around the country that wanted to ban the use of mRNA vaccines in livestock because somehow thought we were going to give our pigs an mRNA vaccine, and when you ate the pig, you were going to get a COVID vaccine that you had resisted taking already. Absolutely crazy. And yet, there were state legislators across the country that introduced legislation to do that. I can't make that stuff up. So when I got to thinking about how can you help us, there are a couple of pieces here. Let's see if I can. Hey, it worked that time. So, real simple. One is we have always been advocates for science. Support the science. Defend the science. Defend the work you do. Be vocal about defending the work you do. And when others come and say, mRNA vaccines are going to give everybody the COVID vaccine by eating meat, and you know that's not accurate, help us by standing up and saying so. Advocate for the science. You're the experts. I'm paid by the industry. You're the folks that study it every single day. Be that advocate for us. Address the challenges of the day, the issues of the day, whatever they may be. Keep looking for that new innovation. We can't feed the billions of people we need to feed without continuing to innovate in livestock production. So keep working toward those ways that can make us better at what we do every day. Your research has to be at the speed of business. And when I say that, I get that that's a challenge, but I never thought twice or even heard the discussion of an mRNA vaccine until we rolled out one for COVID, and within 12 months we were worried about state legislatures banning the use of mRNA vaccines. We need research at the speed of business. And then the last piece is, and the Food Animal Initiative I know has communications as one of its pillars, and I will be your biggest advocate for building on communications within the food animal space. We need you to share your research. We need to share your knowledge in ways that the average person can understand. If you'll forgive me, the posters across the hall that the students have done are fabulous in an academic setting. They are really hard to translate to the general public. We need Facebook posts. Sorry, I'm dated. I don't do Instagram or whatever else they are today. My daughter tells me that all the time. We need a little short YouTube video. We need Instagram. We need things we can put up and share with people in little snippets that they can take home and they can share with their friends. We need subject matter experts who are willing to stand up and be proud of the work you do and defend the work you do. And we need it in a way, we need it in a timely fashion, and we need it in a way that we can share with others. And with that, I think that's all that I brought for you today. So I stayed under my 10 minutes. Here's where you can find us. You can follow us at NC Pork throughout all the social media. Jen Kendrick on my team is back here, and she's responsible for most of that work. So if you've ever got questions of us, this is how to find us. Thank you.
Well, now I get to welcome all three speakers back up. Because now is the lovely time that we can have questions. But before we do the questions, just kind of want to recap what was said and kind of some of the themes to get you thinking if you already don't have questions written down right now. But I think the one that just resonated last was research at the speed of business. I think this is true. You know, we have a lot of exciting research that we do on both sides of the table, on the academic side and also on the with the different companies, and we need to get it out there to people. Translating the innovation. I love that. That hits on some discussions that we had yesterday. And how do you make it shorter? So one of the things that I know speaking with students sometimes, I say, what's your elevator speech on your research? If you're talking to a complete stranger on an airplane, can you say it in less than 5 minutes what you do? And I think that's important for all of us. And then also we heard a lot about innovation and automation. So that'll continue to touch a lot of the different species in development. So with that, I'm not sure where the microphone is, but who has our first question? Oh, come on, you know you want to ask some questions. Oh, go ahead. Oh, here's that one.
Probably not exactly on the topic, but one of you had a slide that said between 2010 and 2050, we've got to improve food production in the U.S. by 70%, I think was the number. I've seen those slides many times, different numbers, all focused on 2050. Where are we today? Does anybody know where we are today in that goal? I hear that we must do this over the next 25 years, but I never have any, I'm not that exposed, I will admit, but I've never seen a slide that says, well, from 2010 until 2023, here's what we've achieved. Does anybody know where we are in that goal?
So I think, complicated answer, but one of the pieces, you know, it was spoke about of even, I think, within this county or within the city or something, there was 27% of kids were at risk of food insecurity and that sort of thing. That was just in North Carolina. So I think we have a long ways to go to get there. There's certainly, production efficiencies and preventative aspects of the farm animal are meeting the protein demands in the developed countries, and where we think there's going to be a lot of gain in that number is going into the developing countries and introducing things like vaccines and preventative programs into modern production practices to increase that efficiency in production, because that's their loss in say, mortality and disease and that thing in those developing countries is much higher because they don't have the tools that we have in the developed country.
Okay, so for our company who makes automation products, so this number is very important. We need to know what is the future. If the food need is going down, that's bad for us. So what I'm saying is, if the future says that the need for food is going to be down, then that's a bad future for us. So we want this to be upward trend. So we take these, like that was from United Nations, that there will be, by 2050, there will be a 70% more need for food. So that means our factory, when we plan on building new factories, we definitively know that by 2 years more next, there will be 10% more requirement in terms of our body supply. So that guarantees us that, okay, so we just take it as a we just trust that number. And so far, that worked very well for us in terms of predicting what we should be ready for. So because, let's say, in the pandemic time, there was a short downturn. So we cannot lay off our workers. We have to keep them, because whenever we have a need, we need them to make it. So we had to keep our employees paid. There was a short furlough, if you know, 1 or 2 weeks, but we keep them off. We didn't lay off any of our employees. And now we see a huge demand. So because we had all those employees reserved, now we can keep the demand, keep up with the demand.
There's a question over here.
Well, I was just going to follow up with the question about between 2010 and 2050, the 70%. Is that to keep maintain status quo for the nutritional needs of the world, or is that to get everybody up to a certain level? We need to get 70%. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So my understanding of those numbers is really projecting the population increase as well as the increase of folks moving into the middle class, and that protein demand that goes alongside that.
I think we have time for maybe one more question. All right. Mr. Ben Pratt.
about had a little trip there. I work in the animal industry in North Carolina, and my background for the most of my life has been pigs and swine production. And Mr. Roy, I know 100% of your time is involved in pigs, and I compliment the diversity of you guys' 3 talks, and it was very diverse. I'm embarrassed, Rajib, that I don't know ABB and a 29 billion, did you say, with a B, and 105,000, how do I not know? And I just read about hydrogen fuel cargo ships. You guys are doing amazing. What percent of, what surprised me was, I don't know you, I don't know your company, but what percent of your company is animal industry, specifically pigs? And I was also, I'm surprised, I'm sorry, of course, I've known about Elanco for 50 years, but I didn't realize, I thought, you said 11% pigs? I'm going, come on, man, give me some more pig stuff here. How about Roy and I? Help us out pigs here.
But so that particular question, I don't know the answer. We have thousands of products in all industries, all automations, and animal livestock management is one of them. So I don't know exactly the percentage, but what we say is we are number 1 in terms of when it comes to competition in any of automation industry. We always consider it as the apple, or when you choose for a reliable product. So the reason you don't know, because we don't sell to public, we sell to other, like Amazon is our buyer, like all big industries, they buy our product, so they know us. So that what matters, but we want to also publicize ourselves in university and other places, so we can hire next talents that is coming out of the. So they when they want to work for Apple, they also know that we are Apple for our business. So that's one of the objective to be here.
Understand.
As a former swine global project leader, I agree. I wish we had more swine stuff, right? And it's I think the balance of we have so many kind of species of interest and so many indications of interest, and focusing R&D efforts right around all of those. So absolutely, we have projects and focus in the swine space. But the other piece about pharma development is there's no 100% chance of success until you actually get that market authorization. Things can fail in the pipeline, and often fail, right? So things coming in at that early stage of discovery on the pipeline have a 90% chance of failure, right? You want to do studies and de-risk and get it to certain inflection points, but even things that are in late development, they could have a 30% failure rate as well. So, sometimes it's just a matter of, the science dictating that, and the timelines, and the kind of different regulatory agencies we have to go through to develop those products. And, some of that, you have a couple failures in one species area, but successes in others, and we're launching products in those spaces. But it's not because we're not focusing on swine necessarily. Absolutely, we want to focus on all species and all kind of products that we have out there.
All right, I would like to thank our panelists one more time. So one key that I'll leave you with is that this was said, I believe, with our first speaker, Lucas, said that connections drive innovation, and I think that's really true. So later this afternoon, you have an opportunity at the reception, meet someone new, or chat with someone you didn't get a chance to. So it's my pleasure next to introduce Lisa Jiang, who's the Director of Technology and Entrepreneurship and Commercialization. She will be the MC for the faculty that will be coming up next.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name and I serve as the Director of Technology Entrepreneurship and Commercialization here at the university, so I was really glad to hear Roy deliver this message about how we can really think about conducting research at the speed of business. Now, I'm not convinced we can absolutely do that because there are some constraints we have in academics, but my job here at the university is to help identify which pieces of cool science we have that can really make an impact around the world around us and how we can help bring that to the world, whether that's through initial publication, through something like commercialization as a license to an existing organization or a joint venture, or an innovative new startup. So we don't want all of our great faculty to leave the university to do that, but it is my job to innovate and spark ideas and to help bridge our partnerships, that valley of death with industry, to help us meet all those goals we just talked about. It's my pleasure today to introduce 5 innovative faculty from across 4 different departments at the university. And today we're going to start with Jiang, is that correct? And he is out of our Department of Animal Science. So welcome, Dr. Jiang.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm going to talk about my research, cost-effective computations for genomic evaluations. Genomic evaluations Genomic evaluation is the evaluation of individual breeding values with the use of genomic information. Genomic evaluation or genomic prediction has been widely used in plant animal breeding. Take direct breeding as an example. Since the first implementation of genomic evaluation in 2009, there have been over about 8 million cattle genotypes and included in the evaluation. Genomic evaluation has doubled the rate of genetic change in direct breeding. That has been very successful. Researchers, including myself, are seeking more opportunities for further improvement for the evaluation, particularly by multi-omics data, including histone modifications, DNA methylation, transcriptome, and others. So, data-driven approaches, particularly deep learning, are particularly hot nowadays. So one of the questions I'd like to figure out is whether deep learning can improve genomic evaluation compared to classical quantitative genetic models. The short answer is negative. So we did benchmark analysis with pig performance data from Smithfield Premium Genetics. We found traditional quantitative genetic methods outperform artificial networks in terms of predictive ability and computational efficiency, whether on CPU platform or GPU platform. So our research has focused on the development of quantitative genetic approaches. So we have developed 2 new software tools, SLAM and MPH. SLAM is particularly efficient in terms of memory usage and speed. For example, it can compute model fitting for genomic prediction of 1 million genotyped animals in less than 1 hour and about 10 gigabytes memory. MPH, Mikail for partitioning heritability, can be used to model multi-omics data for genomic evaluation in the framework of quantitative linear mix model. So I applied MPH to the analysis of genomic prediction, incorporating multi-omics annotations for a lot of dairy traits. The y-axis and the bars represent the importance of each genomic feature for dairy traits. The higher, the more important. So we found some features like coding regions, conserved elements, and particular chromatin states are more important for the breeding of dairy trees. That information can be used to improve genomic predictions or evaluations. So we further analyze the carbon footprint for the algorithms we have developed. So MPH, our software's computational cost for that expensive analysis is equivalent to 2% of a flight from Paris to London. In contrast, the other, one of the most popular software tools, JCTA, its computational cost would be equivalent to 4.2 flights from Paris to London. Okay, that's all for this presentation. Thanks to the Smithfield Premium Genetics and Council Direct Breeding for providing the access. Thanks to the lab members. Jiang is now a scientist at Garey of Science. He has been applying our software, SLAM, to the evaluation of corn breeding. The feedback is pretty good. So last but not least, I'd like to propose a collaboration on the possible use of our new approaches to the industry partners. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Jiang. So I should note that the format of our presentations here are going to follow exactly how we've been doing the rest of this afternoon. So each of the presenters will present, and then we'll have a panel discussion at the end. So please hold your questions. Next, we have Dr. Vivek Fellner, who is also a colleague of Dr. Jiang's from Animal Science. Welcome.
So we are spending a lot of time and a lot of money to find the most effective battery that can store energy for extended periods of time. That search is still ongoing, but we'll come back and talk about the nature's best battery that we have, and that is cows. Cows can generate scary levels of hydrogen, almost 20 to 30 liters per hour, 500 to 700 liters per day of hydrogen that they can generate in their gut. And they do that by defying the laws of levitation. I am Vivek Fellner in the Department of Animal Science. I'm a ruminant nutritionist. I want to share a few thoughts with you all today on how microbes alter animal performance in animal health. So plants, by the way, the best solar panels we have available today, can capture sunlight and carbon dioxide from the air and produce energy in the form of carbohydrate polymers that they store for their primary customers, and that's animals in general, but ruminants in particular. Most of that energy that they store is in a carbohydrate called cellulose, and cellulose is a plant cell wall structure that the cows cannot break down. No mammal has the enzyme to break cellulose down. So the extraction of energy from a source that has the most energy in it is left to microbes. And microbes in the gut excrete an enzyme called cellulase, which then in turn will extract energy for the animal to be able to use in various products that then find their way into the human food chain. And microbes do that through a process called fermentation. And the fermentation is anaerobic in the gut. They will take those plant carbohydrates, particularly cellulose, which mammals can break down, microbes will extract the energy from cellulose into a lot of biomolecules, particularly short-chain fatty acids. And we talk about three very important short-chain fatty acids in ruminant nutrition: acetate, propionate, and butyrate. And then those are the major source of energy for ruminant animals. In the process of fermenting these carbohydrates, these bugs produce a lot of byproducts as well. And one of them is hydrogen. And that's where hydrogen is produced, is inside the gut. So if you're producing 500 to 700 liters of hydrogen, it would be impossible for the animal to function normally if that hydrogen stays in the body. So how does the animal maintain very small amounts of hydrogen? Trace levels of hydrogen are found in the gut. Anything above trace level will inhibit cell life function as we know it. So the major route of hydrogen disposal in the animal is methane, right? And so animals will take that carbon, electrons that are generated from digestive processes that are transferred onto hydrogens, then those hydrogens tag onto the carbon, and then that carbon is expelled. And what do we know by that? Methane, greenhouse gas, climate change. Well, these animals have been doing this for eons. We're just figuring things out now. And it's really important to pay close attention to that because it does have a negative impact not only on the climate, but that carbon energy that's being expelled as methane is energy that was in the feed and being lost to the animal. So we typically relate feed energy loss to carbon methane emissions to about 10 to 12%. So a lot of our efforts have been around this rumen fermentation in order to mitigate some of that methane emission and capture carbon and molecules that then the animal can use for meeting their energy requirements. If hydrogen is anywhere more than trace amounts, pH drops, acidosis occurs, and then animals have a cascade of debilitating conditions that affect performance as well as animal health. So it's very important that the system keep that hydrogen level very low. We in ruminant nutrition have been aware of this situation for a long time. We've worked with a lot of emerging technologies over the years that have submerged and then re-emerged. And it's really exciting to actually see where we are today with newer technologies that are trying to address this issue. Feed additives have been around for a long time. I've worked with Elanco very closely on ionophores. Ionophores have been very effective in mitigating methane production, but of course we know the effects associated with antibiotic resistance, and so ionophores are no longer attractive, and we're looking at other alternatives. What we have to keep in mind is that it's this hydrogen pool that we are after, and if we have feed additives in the form of prebiotics, probiotics, phytobiotics, lots of oils, surfactants have been tested quite effectively. And methane has been reduced to about 30% of normal production. But more importantly, that extra hydrogen that was released from methane was channeled towards alternative hydrogen sinks. And some of the important ones that we are interested in is the short-chain fatty acids, particularly propionate and microbes in general. Chemical inhibition has been very effective as well. So we can actually intervene into enzymatic pathways and directly inhibit methanogens in order to reduce methane production. And that has been fairly popular in recent years. We do channel a fair amount of hydrogen into these alternative sinks, propionate, ammonia, hydrogen sulfide, reduce methane, lower hydrogen gas to maintain function. But very often we see that the hydrogen pool still increases in the gut. So we can't quite get rid of all the hydrogen using chemical inhibition approach, and it sometimes does inhibit fermentation because hydrogen cannot be present in the gut in more than trace amounts. More recent efforts are now towards chemical and hydrogen-trophic bacteria, so a combination of the two. Some feed additives, and then maybe some more directed inhibition of either enzymes or methanogens particularly. And that has been very attractive in that it reduces methane significantly, and you're looking at maybe 40, 50, 60% lower methane emissions. Moves that hydrogen into these alternative sinks, propionate and ammonia. But more importantly, it does maintain a very low hydrogen concentration in the gut, which is paramount if you want any of these products to be effective. The future is very promising. I've worked with a lot of people in this over the years, and I have some very young faces here representing an industry that have some very exciting technologies to deal with the alternative pools that can be maximized for animal production and for animal health. And with that, I will thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Fellner. So now we're going to broaden our horizons a bit, move from strictly just land and think about what we do in our oceans and lakes and aquaculture. So let us please welcome from the Department of Biological and Agricultural Engineering, Dr. Steve Hall.
Good. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you for all our organizers. Much appreciate this. As Monty Python says now, for something completely different. So aquaculture is actually the parallel not to animal agriculture, but to terraculture. So this is all species. When aquaculture is generally spoken of, it includes also, for example, seaweeds and algae. But I'm going to speak primarily to the animal components of this. And again, it is much broader. One of our earlier speakers, I think Lucas, mentioned, if I include aquaculture, I get a whole lot more species. So it's a very, very diverse field. I'm an engineer, so fair warning. You can try to ask me a biology question, but I might pass it to a colleague. I run a small facility at the coast called the Marine Aquaculture Research Center. One of the big things about our field is not that it's big, but that it's growing. There's a fairly modest field in North Carolina. It is a sort of mid-sized field around the world that is growing. It's been growing about 40 or 50 years. The natural fisheries reached their capture limit about 1985 or 1990. You see that blue line is pretty much steady after that. Aquaculture is now just about matched. So I asked people, how much of your food this morning, mostly land food, did you wild catch, and how much of it was cultured? And most people say, it was all cultured, or 99%. Yeah, once in a while I shoot a deer, or I pick some berries in the woods. In the water, we're at about 50-50. So about half our food is now cultured in terms of aquaculture. In terms of putting it in context with other proteins, in the last couple of years, fish has passed beef. The beef trend is just gently down, but the aquaculture trend is upwards. One of the things that is wonderful is that people are eating more fish. It's probably very good for human health. It's also a very good feed converter. That was hinted at earlier. Usually our fish have feed conversion ratios in the 1 point something, between 1 and 2 is a pretty typical. They don't have to build a big body. They don't have to build big leg bones to hold themselves up like cows because they're in the water. So they can focus on producing protein. On the other hand, that blue line at the bottom is fish that are captured in the wild and fed to aquaculture, and therefore not fed to humans. So one of the big pushes is to look at plant-based feeds. We do have a team here, and I want to acknowledge a pretty broad range of people from a number of departments. I also want to point out the red is people that have come in the last few years, and so I'm really encouraged by our younger colleagues in a diverse range of fields that are contributing. Here are some of the key market or technology issues in aquaculture, especially in marine aquaculture, which I'm interested in. So I consider aquaculture a sustainability enterprise that produces food. It is in many ways very sustainable, almost fundamentally. But we do need to move to more lower trophic or plant-based feeds. I don't even like the word waste. Our valuable water with lots of nutrients in it, when we match it with plant users. So I was in a discussion last week between an aquaculture producer and a rice producer. And by the end of that conversation, they were inviting each other to go to each other's places. It was a very, very positive conversation. Wait, you've got free irrigation water with nutrients in it? Let's work the numbers. So I think in many ways, we need to look at it that way, as opposed to thinking of that as a waste product. Health, both for humans and for animals, is important. And we have some local advantages, and I'm going to mention one of our local species here in a little bit. And I'm particularly interested in the marine or coastal side of things. So briefly, trout did get mentioned by name, and Dr. Fox, thank you for mentioning aquaculture, and a couple of our colleagues mentioned aquaculture, so 3%, we're little. But trout's we are number 2 state in the country. We also do tilapia, sturgeon. Down at the coast, we do oysters. Some of this is in ponds or raceways. Some of this is in tanks indoors. So there is a range of products. And I'm going to talk about a couple little projects that are just example projects, but gives you a taste. So this is the end of a study on prebiotics and probiotics for larval striped bass. Translation, yogurt for fish. So and other animal areas are also exploring prebiotics and probiotics. What can we do that will enhance gut health and perhaps long-term health? So we've just completed that study and we're starting to get some answers. We're also applying that to some of these plant-based feeds. And you can see some of our collaborators and students there. And then on the other side, what do we do with this nutrient-rich water? And so a couple of options. You can see aquaponics. I have a PhD student working in aquaponics right now, taking that water and turning that into, in this case, there's some lettuce up there, but we're also looking at salt-tolerant plants. We have taken kale to 10 or 15 parts per thousand, about half of the strength of seawater, and still getting some pretty good kale, maybe even high in nutrients. We're also looking at some coastal species for saltwater use. And I want to just mention this extension website because most of us really don't know much about aquaculture. A pretty nice place for kind of just a primer. So feel free to take a look at the aquaculture portal. And I really appreciate the extension team that was mentioned by some other speakers. Great work there. So our overall vision is really both productivity and sustainability. So it is both of these together. We know we've got work to do, and we're looking at opportunities. So here's a way, if you want to get involved, certainly our students, and we've had a number of students and have a number of ongoing students. They are the future. They are exploring some of these research topics, and that's really critically important. Lots of times we have support for a limited period. Sometimes there's a need for a semester or two of support that can really help a student finish a project. And you can see some of our students and projects here. And then our overall projects really do focus on the sustainability and growth theme, and I'm happy to talk and answer such questions as I can. Thank you to our supporters, and thank you for the time.
Thank you, Dr. Hall. I'm going to have to give a little more thought to starting that bio-integrated farm in my backyard with the fish tank on the bottom and the hydroponics on the top, right? All right, perfect. So we're going to shift thought again, and this time we're going to talk about how our research shapes policy and investigates the politics behind animal welfare. So from the Department of Agricultural and Resource Economics, please welcome Tom Vukina. Dr. Vukina.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'm probably the only social scientist in this room, which kind of makes me a little bit nervous kind of talking to a different audience. So as our new dean just mentioned in his introductory statements, we're very good at what we do in the college, and probably it's totally obvious to most of you, but what is probably less obvious to you, that we're also very good in economics. The Department of Agriculture and Resource Economics is like, anyway you slice it, probably top 5 in the nation, and we try to, we'll try to become even better under the new leadership in the college. So what I'm going to do today, I'm going to talk to you about famous or infamous Prop 12 that has been passed in California relatively recently, that actually bans the selling of caged eggs and gestation crates pork in the state of California. So that has not been really, didn't come as a big surprise to most of the people. What was actually surprising that it has been actually upheld by the Supreme Court, which by sort of all standards is a tremendously conservative court, both on social issues and economic issues as well, which was actually not really predicted by a lot of people. But it's important because it may be sort of a harbinger of future things to come. So let me just tell you a few things about what we have done in the department within the last several years. So we have looked with a former graduate student in mind at the sort of welfare impacts of Proposition 12 on the state of California, and we actually found out that the proposition, when implemented, will actually cause an annual welfare loss to households in the state in about $72 billion annually, and the industry level losses at the retail level will amount to like 18% of the pre-ban industry profit. So the question becomes, so if you look at the state of California with 40 million people or so consuming about 300 eggs per person, if you look at the data, you can actually see that only about 14% of total eggs consumed in the state of California were actually, prior to the ban, were actually cage-free. And the Proposition 12 was actually passed on the ballot by 61% of the popular vote. So the question becomes, why do people who actually regularly buy conventional eggs, why would they vote to ban the existence of those regular eggs, which obviously came as a tremendous cost to them? So this is what we sort of try to understand in the sort of current and ongoing research in the department. So economics has something that we call the sort of differentiation between the public good and the private good. So eggs are have both attributes of public good and private good. So public goods, there's think hamburgers. Public good is something that if consumed by one individual cannot be consumed by others. So unlike public goods that think national defense, so if consumed by one individual doesn't diminish the availability of the thing to other individuals. So in this framework, so obviously eggs are private good because if you consume an egg, it's not going to be consumed by anybody else. But it's also the collective benefits of improved animal welfare could be considered a public good as well. So think about how can we explain then this puzzle? You know, why do people say vote for something that they don't really buy? So I think a good analogy would be say proposals to impose some type of a gun control. So think about an individual who absolutely has sort of no gun and has no desire to ever buy one, may actually vote for against some sort of proposal to impose a strict gun regulation because he or she values certain individual freedom or is against government intervention or things of that nature. The opposite is also possible, where you can have a sort of an avid hunter and a gun collector would actually vote for sort of sensible gun control because he values or she values sort of security or more than anything else. So that's basically the same thing what's really going on here as well. So people may actually vote for animal welfare protection even if they don't really when it comes to buying, they don't buy, say, cage-free eggs. So this is sort of equally possible. So if you look at what people buy, this is going to give you not a very good prediction about what can actually happen in the domain of sort of a future animal welfare proposal or regulation. So that's what we're trying to understand in this sort of ongoing research. The empirical analysis are very complicated in all these scenarios because, as you see here on this graph, on this chart, it requires a combination of sort of different data sources. It's very, very elaborate data analysis. On one hand, you have to have a data on purchase of what people actually buy. You also have to have a data on how people vote. And you also have to know something about the participants. You have to know something about their socioeconomic characteristics and stuff like that. So the three chunks of data that have to be combined together in order to actually do this type of analysis. So some preliminary findings that we found in the model that kind of overlays the private good aspect with the public good aspect of buying and voting is that increasing the spread between prices of cage-free eggs and eggs is being an example here, and regular eggs increases the gap. So the bigger gap means that it's more likely for the proposal of this type to be actually passed. Okay. The second result that we get is that the increasing the fraction of consumers less sensitive to animal welfare decreases the gap. Of course, as I say, it does, so everybody will kind of expect this. But the reason why this is important, because the industry can actually do things in order to desensitize people to animal welfare issues by providing more information that things are not as they look, right? And then finally, we got the result that increasing the heterogeneity of consumers decreases the gap. So the more diverse the population in the district or in the precinct, the less likely is that the proposal will pass. So going forward, you can see that over the past 2 decades, like 19 farm animal welfare regulations, or either ballot or legislative bills, have been actually enacted in 11 states. And probably there's more to come. So I think ensuring animal-friendly environment in animal husbandry is sort of global phenomenon, and those initiatives are very likely to increase. So where I see this sort of future research going in critically needed is we need to know more about the cost structure of animal-friendly husbandry practices. We need to know how much it really costs, sort of to move from a conventional, say, broiler operation to, like a free-range broiler operation. Second, which animals practices are prone to future initiatives. So where is the most likely new Prop 12 is going to happen? What about the animals? What are the husbandry practices? And then finally, which states are sort of more likely to enact the new regulation? Can we actually predict that? And what we have been able to do so far, we can actually give a fairly successful answers to all of those three. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I think all of us know that there's a very emotional attachment to how we view food, and certainly animals, whether they are food or companion animals. And earlier, I'm going to cite Roy Lee again, talked about how it might be our role as people in academia to help translate some of these realities and myths and misperceptions that people have about the relationship with food and food animals. This might be an opportunity. for us in the future to discuss. So to round out our panel today, we are going to have a discussion about pathogens, right? We've had a lot of discussion about pathogens over the last 2 days, whether it is identifying them or eradicating them, right? So please welcome from the Prestage Department of Poultry Science, Dr. Lynn Walker.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Lynn Walker, assistant professor from the Department of Poultry Science. So different from the other speakers, mine is more research focused, less generic. I'm told to present this research, which was funded by the AHNC, the Animal Nutrition Health Consortium. So it's a small project, but hopefully we can sparkle some ideas and promote some good discussion and hopefully potential collaboration from some of you here. So as most of us know that Campylobacter, along with Salmonella, they are the top 5 foodborne pathogens in the US, and they are regulated by the USDA FSIS in poultry products. So USDA is currently updating the performance standards for Campylobacter in poultry products. And as many of us are aware that USDA is proposing a regulatory framework to control Salmonella, and they are aiming for a 3-pronged approach to control Salmonella from pre-harvest to post-harvest, which historically Salmonella was mainly regulated in the processing plant, so in the post-harvest level. And even though Salmonella is getting all the attention right now, but it is very likely that the Campylobacter is going to be the next one under the spotlight, just right after Salmonella. So, but different from Salmonella, which the vertical transmission has been confirmed. Vertical transmission of Campylobacter is still debatable over the past decades of research. So there have been some research showing that Campylobacter were isolated from the eggs, from newly hatched chicks, but some other research showed a lack of evidence suggesting that those Campylobacter were isolated, or the DNA were probably due to the cross-contamination from the environment or just the bacterial passage from the eggshell into the egg content. So, but it is very critical to understand how Campylobacter is transmitted in the poultry production so that targeted control measures can be put in place. And if vertical transmission does exist, then it's the cross-contamination of Campylobacter through this route in broiler production is not negligible, because this organism is known to spread rapidly within a flock once one individual bird is found to be positive. And it is also important for the egg production because, if the vertical transmission does exist, then it means there might be some potential risk that can be directly passed on to the consumers. So again, there have been studies isolating Campylobacter from the reproductive tract within the hens. However, that doesn't mean that the ova inside the reproductive tract are contaminated with Campylobacter, although the chance might be very high. So our research is trying to bridge the knowledge gap between the evidence in the reproductive tract and the laid shell eggs. We were trying to identify the location where the contamination occurs within the reproductive tract, if any. So we actually challenged 48 hens at about 20 plus weeks old when they are having their peak reproduction. And then we challenge with about 10 to the 8th of Campylobacter cocktails. We monitor each individual birds of their reproduction cycle and to predict the ova position. So 2 weeks after the challenge, we started to collect the ova at different locations within the tract, along with the tract itself. So, and all these samples were enriched and tested in both PCR and culture method. So this one, The first four here are the results that we get from each section of the reproductive tract. So these two actually should be switched because the magnum is at a higher location than isthmus. But anyway, from here you can see that out of those 48 birds, we didn't see any Campylobacter from infundibulum, nothing from magnum, and we did find one from isthmus and 9 from a shell glands, which is the very end of the reproductive tract, which makes sense because we actually challenge those birds with a very high number of Campylobacter. Actually, the percentage here is fairly low because we challenge all of these 48 birds with Campy, but after 2 weeks, as you can see, actually most of them are flushed out, so only 9 reside in there. We did see that 2 birds' follicles that were positive for Campylobacter and 1 ova that we collected from the shell gland position. It was also positive in Campy. And very interestingly, actually those Campy isolates that we got from follicles and from ova, they were actually the wild-type Campylobacter. They were not the one we challenged with. So out of these 13 positives total, out of close to 300 samples we tested for, there were only 4 of them matched the marker strain that we were given. And the other 9, they were actually the wild-type Campylobacter, which is different from the one we inoculated. And we did find a wild-type Campy from the control birds, which means actually even before this challenging study, Campylobacter have been established within the reproductive system, even though at a very low rate, and that was at about 20 to 30 weeks of age. So this is one study. It did show some scientific evidence that the Campylobacter can invade the chicken's reproductive tract and its eggs. But does that mean that Campylobacter interventions are needed at the breeder farm? Well, I put a question mark here because I think it also depends on the survival of these organisms in the eggs. So can Campylobacter really survive the refrigeration, survive the hatching process, survive the egg processing? And if the answer is no, then it might not be a concern for us. So for this small, short 5 minutes presentation, again, as we can see, there are still a lot of unknowns or research opportunities waiting for us to explore. And hopefully, with this short presentation that we can sparkle some good ideas and potential collaborations with you all. Thank you.
Thank you to all of our faculty. I hope you've been impressed with the diversity of topics that our research is undertaking here at NC State. So we're going to open the panel up for discussion, and I'm going to start things off with a question about what their future plans are. So one of my roles at the university is as the Director of Diligence for the Wolfpack Investor Network, which is our angel investment network that's affiliated with NC State. So I'm always thinking about how do we bridge that gap between on-campus and off-campus commercialization. How do we get people to be investor ready? So my question for each one of you in turn is to think about, you've got this room full of both internal and external stakeholders. So what kind of collaboration do you think you need to help bring your impact to the outside, whether that means commercialization or enabling non-academic applications of what you're researching now?
Hello. Since my work is focused on software too, so one of the key resources that I need would be the data, particular genomic data, and I can use my approach to train the data to get new knowledge about the genetic architecture of the complex traits for breeding. So I can return that knowledge to the farmers or breeders to improve their modeling for better prediction and evaluation of individual animals or plants.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I want grad students, so if you all can support our students here, provide them an opportunity to work in different labs.
second that on the grad students, always useful. One of our recent collaborations was actually swine and aquaculture waste, and using that to produce plant products. That has, I think, some carryover into some of our commercial applications. The other thing I would say is some of our microbial, both some of the prebiotic and probiotics, but also we use microbes for denitrification in our system. So any of those areas are certainly of interest.
Oh yes, absolutely. Graduate students are, I think, essential. As I showed it in one of my slides, most of the work that we do is extremely data intensive. The data itself is not expensive. You can buy data with limited funds. But graduate students are actually are going to do the work, and support for them is absolutely critical in order for anything to be happening.
Yeah, I can't really speak for our department, but just for myself, I have been here for about 2.5 years, and I have a really large portion in extension. So I do work a lot with the industry partners. So we have a lot of evaluation of different feed additives, water treatment, or any kind of agents, whatever we can help to reduce some of our Campylobacter through the whole food chain in poultry production. So I do find that it's very useful for my own research, which I use those financial resources to support the graduate students, undergrad, and also since my large appointment in extension, which I can directly apply those information back to the industry. Hopefully they can get some benefits out of that. And personally myself, I'm also hosting a HACCP roundtable for the meat and the poultry industry, which we do is quarterly. And if any of you from the poultry sector, you probably have heard of that. But we do is as a commodity group, we do work very closely with the industry and internally collaborate across the departments, across the colleges, because that's the need. And I can't echo more with Roy, our last speaker in the previous session, that I really think we do need to address the needs from the industry, and at the same time, we really need to push out the information we get through our scientific research back to the public, which I think we need to do a better job on that.
All right, thank you. Are there questions from the room? Just be a hold for a microphone. Thank you.
Question on the aquaculture project. You mentioned it in your last comment, but I'd like to expand a little bit more. What research has been done, or are you doing, looking at the combination of aquaculture with both plant and animal agriculture, and how that impacts sustainability metrics that producers might be looking at?
Yeah, I'll mention a couple of things. We're very, very interested in that, and I think that's critical in aquaculture, but also across all the animal industries. Thinking of those as resource nutrients. We're currently doing a couple studies. One of them is what's called ecological treatment wetlands, where we're using plants, especially with saltwater. I'm very interested in the saltwater side. All of our marine aquaculture, that saltwater will not go on traditional plants. We are also doing freshwater work with our tilapia producers. That's fairly easy to apply. And then there are systems right now, we're talking about a striped bass system where 20 of 22 months will be freshwater. That can go straight on to rice as one example. And then there's 2 months that are salt where we're finishing. That will need to be a different plant species, and we're talking about possibilities there to clean that up before that effluent is released. So we're very interested in collaborations. There's a lot of stuff. The aquaponics is really, some of the aquaponics producers claim that the plant material, which we think of as sort of the byproduct, actually contributes substantially to the economics of the overall situation. So we're exploring all those possibilities. Thank you.
Other questions in the room? Yes.
Is there
So my question actually, Dr. Walker already sort of answered. I was going to say I have a strong appreciation for the applied science nature, being at NC State University. And I think a lot of that component is because many of the faculty have extension appointments. So Dr. Walker already sort of answered that question, but I was curious to the other four gentlemen if you could address the same. How is your research and programs kind of engaged already with industry and perhaps through a lot of the extension efforts that you have?
Maybe I will start. Yeah. My research is all applied, as my title said, is in applied microbiology. My background is really food safety, which mainly from the post-harvest side. We deal with all sorts of food products. But since I joined NC State, working in this department, which most of folks are in the lab production, so I started to kind of immerse myself in the lab production, and also food safety is really from farm to table, even though I know a lot of lab production people, they don't like to hear that, but this is, the trend. So that's where the research opportunities are. So I'm really dealing with all the microbiology related foodborne pathogens, and I even have a student who works on chromosoma, which some of you might have heard of. It's a parasite for turkeys. So in my case, all my research are applied, and I work closely with the industry, and I like the industry. But again, that is my appointment. But for some research faculty members, they probably are more focused on the fundamental science part, right? And maybe I'll pass it.
Well, yes. So I came to animal welfare relatively recently, within the last, say, 3 years or so. Most of my work previously was at NC State was related to economics of poultry industry. In particular, I looked at the way the broiler industry is organized, and in particular into issues of contracting and integrated grower relations. And I've done a lot of work, trying to understand how the payment schemes work, so-called famous, now infamous tournaments, which were very unpopular among some group of growers, with the sort of constant pressure from packers and stockyards, the regulatory arm of USDA, to try to regulate them out of existence or modify them such that they're going to create sort of less controversy and less animosity among growers. So this is very sort of, I also have a small extension appointment. I see this as a very, going forward as well, a very sort of a fruitful possible area of cooperation between us in the department and say broiler poultry integrators, or also to a certain extent swine integrators as well. Wherever there are contracts, there is a lot of sort of economics to be done. So.
Thank you. Great question. I also have a three-way split, teaching, research, extension. A couple of things on the extension side. We run a North Carolina Aquaculture Development Conference in the spring. We're in our 33rd year, I think. You are welcome. The food is great. I'll just say that. The science is pretty good, too. And the extension website that I mentioned, and there are portals for most extension areas, but that's certainly also a way. One of the things that we have linked there are some infographics and some virtual tours that allow people to see, but perhaps with a little more biosecurity, what's happening on our farms.
Thank you. Personally, I've been primarily involved with applied and fundamental research. So focus has been, if I could funnel everything to one topic, feed additives. Been involved with looking at all kinds of different technologies that alter animal function in the gut and how that might impact milk quality and animal health. But within our Department of Animal Science, we've got a plethora of expertise, extension, basic research, applied research that addresses all kinds of multitude facets of animal performance and animal health.
Thank you. I would say collaboration would be an integral part of industry and academia. I think genomic selection is a good example. So scientists in academia created a sophisticated method for that framework, and farmers and breeders contribute their animals or plants to the database to make the database bigger and bigger, so that prediction is becoming more and more accurate. And that is the result of the collaboration, close collaboration between academia and farmers and breeders. Thank you.
Any other questions from the room? All right, I want to thank Dr. Jiang, Fellner, Vukina, Walker, and Dr. Hall for being here to present their diverse research. I do want to encourage our panel and also any other researchers in the room just to remind you that the Chancellor's Innovation Fund solicitation is open. We'll receive applications through the 5th, so if you want to get real about your research and bring it to the world, that's a great opportunity to earn up to $50,000 of concerted support from the Office of Research Commercialization to bring that impact outside of campus. Thank you very much. I'm going to turn things over to Deborah Thompson. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to all of our presenters, to our amazing moderators, Sienna. We needed 2 strong women to keep everybody in line, so thank you, April, and Lisa came in at the last minute, so thank you, Lisa, for pinch hitting. Let's just take a second to thank all of our presenters one more time. Before I close the program, I'd like to do just a couple of housekeeping issues. My name is Deborah Thompson. My role for the College of Ag and Life Sciences is Research Partnership Development, which means that my job is to connect amazing faculty like the ones that you saw present today with industry scientists, always with a goal of developing research collaborations. One of my partners, actually 2 of my partners are here today, but let me bring up Jason Garey, because there were a number of really exciting opportunities in terms of student support, facilities, and Jason is the man for that.
I don't know if I'm the man. I think our faculty probably sold everybody on the need for graduate student support, and if they didn't, our dean sure did. So I also want to point out that they put the fundraiser at the tail end of the program, holding y'all up for the rest of the evening, so I'm going to make this quick. Outside of grad support, I do, like this is an exciting time with the Food Animal Initiative launch, or coming, as Dean Fox has talked about. I mean, we've got a 1,500-acre farm, research farm, within minutes of the capital city of one of the fastest growing states in the country. And if you can't get excited about that in agriculture, then you need to see me outside. We'll have a big result. But there's a ton of facilities and a ton of work that we're going to be doing from a fundraising perspective. So outside of the graduate student support and outside of the things Roy talked about on the ways you can help us, is if you want to be engaged in helping form what the farm of the future looks like and what that 1,500 acres looks like for research, please find me and we can talk more about it. So I'll turn it back over. Notice I didn't take long as the vote.
One more person, Dinah, if you just stand up and so everybody knows who to go to.
Plant Sciences Initiative.
So she's got plans, I got animals. So there.
And by the way, when I do emerging research showcases with Deborah, she lets me go first. Just saying.
Now I'm in trouble. Thank you, Dinah. I hope you saw an opportunity for yourself, for your company to partner here. We do have a 1-question survey. Please take the survey. Tell me, tell us, what is the thing, where did you see yourself? Where did you see yourself in a project today or in a project for the future? And if you will self-identify, that's the 2nd question. It's not a requirement. But if you will self-identify, you will receive an email or phone call from me or from Jason or Dinah, depending on what your interest is. That's it. We have an open bar outside. Please stick around and visit with our speakers, our industry pals, and thank you very much for coming this afternoon.
We have no fun.